Good afternoon, Jackie. I want to thank you for submitting the first call planning tool as was required for follow-up from our workshop on successful prospecting last week. First off, you have an excellent foundation already, and I can tell just by the portions that you completed that you really were focused during the workshop and took a lot from it because I can see you're actually applying the skills that we taught and then I taught as a facilitator. So kudos to you for that. There are just a couple of areas that we can tweak slightly to help improve your chances of having a successful first prospecting tool. So just again to recap, my role as facilitator is not only just to teach you the concepts during the course, but to make sure in following up that when you're actually using the skills, you're using them to the best of your advantage. So I want to just show a couple areas where you might want to tweak slightly here. So starting off looking at the top portion of the first call planning tool, you'll see your target company. You've got that there. Your contacts. You have the names of the individuals, which was great because we talked about making sure you just don't have the position of the person. You want to be able to ensure that you know who you're asking for or the name of the person you're speaking to make sure you're personalizing that interaction. So that's great. And I can see on your focus of power here, your focus of receptivity, dissatisfaction, and power, you have really got a good understanding of what those positions are and what they hold within that organization. You have identified who the gatekeeper is. The only thing I would suggest to tweak here is that I would put gatekeeper and focus of receptivity because you want to make sure it's known to yourself. You don't forget that you want to turn Don Smith, who's the gatekeeper, you want to move Don into the focus of receptivity because once you've done that, you have some support that's someone that wants to help you and give you information because at the end of the day, it's going to be Don Smith that helps you to get in front of the right people that can make the decisions. So that's the only thing I would tweak slightly there. Looking at the prospecting advance, again, based on what you've put in there, I can really tell that you grasp the concept from the workshop really well. Your number one prospecting advance is to get a scheduled meeting with Sarah Brown, and that's great because Sarah Brown is the focus of power. So essentially, she's the decision maker. So your ideal situation, that's what you're going to get out of the prospect. Your backup advance is also excellent because, as we know, unfortunately, things don't always go exactly as planned during a cold call. So, plan B, if you can't get an actual scheduled meeting with Sarah Brown, at least you can get Sarah's contact information. The one thing you might want to do is add a strategy on how you might do that. So, is it are you going to try to get her email address, or are you going to try to get some more specific advice from Don Smith on what the best mechanism is to reach out to Sarah? Is it by LinkedIn? Is it through Instagram? Is it through email? So that might be one thing that you might want to add to that. Going to the business issue concern, again, this is a thing that's going to capture the person's attention. Great job on that. You kept it short and simple, which is what you want to do. You don't want to over elaborate with a gatekeeper. You have the impact that tariffs will have on the cost of U.S. ingredients and products. Great. Really simple, straightforward. You're not assuming too much from Don Smith because we don't know what we know Don's a gatekeeper. We don't know how involved he is in purchasing and looking at the profitability. But we do know that anybody working in the restaurant industry typically is aware of the tariffs as an issue. So that's terrific. And then our company's capabilities to address that issue. Excellent job. You kept it very simple again, online ordering platform. The reason why that's great is keeping it brief is good because you're not assuming too much because you don't know the exact impacts that the tariffs are going to have on this potential customer. You do know it's going to have some kind of impact, but if you elaborate too much, you're showing that you're making potentially incorrect assumptions. So great job there. Now moving down to your messaging. So once you're in front of the gatekeeper, and trying to turn them into the focus of receptivity, the first thing you want to do is provoke, which is spark interest in that individual. And so the required element is to identify a business issue, which is the impact of tariffs. Now, your message that you're preparing to say to Don is, are your staff concerned with the potential cost impacts that the tariffs are going to have? It's okay to ask that question, so it's okay to keep that message in there. I would suggest that you do add something to that because if you go right into the question, he might not know what you're talking about because we don't know his level of understanding. So you may want to do something to state something that's going to show that you have knowledge of the subject. Perhaps, I read an article in the Globe and Mail on the potential impact that tariffs are going to be having on our restaurant industry. And then you can lead into that question, which is, are your staff concerned with the potential cost impacts? It's just tying it together so that you can have the gatekeeper's brain start working to potentially open it up to identify that this is a potential issue that you can help with, which would streamline your next step, which is to persuade. So again, to recap, persuading, it credentials you as a business professional and creates value. So you're establishing value by referring back to our online ordering platform, which you clearly identified as our company's capabilities to help address tariffs. So you did a great job here. You kept it short and simple. You stated our online ordering platform clearly identifies products that are Canadian sourced, allowing you to purchase items that will not see price increases due to tariffs. Fantastic job. All you're doing is you're describing the feature and the advantage. And that's where you want to stop. You did not go into the benefit because you don't know what the benefit is, because you don't know what their specific needs are. So great job of keeping that short and to the point. And then going down to the propose. What will you say to propose a prospecting advance? And again, going to the top of the page here, your prospecting advance is to either get a scheduled meeting with Sarah or a backup advance, which is the best way to contact Sarah to get her attention. And so what your question was to get to propose an advance is, would this feature provide enough of a benefit to consider moving your business to our company? I would actually not recommend going in with that because you're going in right into close the deal. Remember, very seldomly do we actually close the deal in a cold call. You're just trying to get in advance. And this question is trying to put a lot of pressure on the gatekeeper because the gatekeeper is probably not the decision maker. And you're actually asking them to make a decision to move the business to your company. And that's not the gatekeeper's role. So I would change this messaging because you want this messaging to reflect what your goal is, which is just to get an appointment. The backup premise and the frequently asked questions perhaps was not a part of the requirement for this particular assignment. So we will do that next. But all in all, it's a really good first step in having a successful call. I think if you just make a couple of those tweaks, you're going to put yourself in a really good position to have a successful cold call. Thank you again, Jackie, and good luck with your first call. And if you have any questions and want to reach out to me directly with any potential tweaks and some more feedback, please feel free to contact me anytime. Thank you very much.